Good evening, motherfuckers. How are you all doing out there? Was everyone ready? I sure hope so. Lord knows I don't feel ready. Alright. Well, I'll certainly try. Let's make sure I've got all the windows. Ah! Are you all ready? Okay. I'm still very nervous, but just for all of you. Oh, this is fun. Oh, so many. Hmm? All right. Oh, thank you very much, Marine Man VR, for joining the Warren. I hope you enjoy it here. All right, here we go. Wow, I have full body now. Let me zoom out a little bit so I can show you all a little more. Yeah, there we go. Hello, 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 hello. Oh, thank you very much, Dolly Chu, for joining the Warren. I hope you enjoy it here. Oh, thank you. So this is my full model now. Oh. Thank you, Marine. I really appreciate it. So, let me see if I can get I gotta make sure I stretch.
Xoxidia X gifted a tier 1 sub to Epitome Zero Awkward.
Yeah! Yeah! Hi!
Xoxidia X gifted a tier 1 sub to Dragon Soul
Okay,
14.
I got a little bit of my bounce. There we go.
Xoxidia X gifted a tier 1 sub
Alright.
to Bridgie D20.
So, as you can see, there are many very important parts of my new model. And before I get started on anything, I'm going I'm going to go over my very important details of this new model.
Gifted a tier 1 sub to Misty Chaser.
So, as you can see, this new model has very good soft wagglers up there. And as you can see, they do in fact now waggle. You also can see that my plinky bits have special glasses in front of them. Oh, and can I show you one of the things I'm proudest of for this model? So let me zoom in. So take a good long look. Oh, thank you. Take a good long. Oh my god! Oh my god! There's a hype train coming. That has never happened for me before. Wow. Thank you so much. But okay, so what I want to show off is take a good close look at my glasses. You see how you can kind of see there's a little bit of a lens glare going on? I'll keep a close eye on where the lens glare is, because I can now do this. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm very proud of it. I still probably need to fine-tune it a little bit, so maybe I shouldn't show everything off. Maybe? I don't know. Maybe? maybe. Okay. Let's also go through what I can do now for all of my emo toggle stuff. So, let me just open up the big book of emotions here. Let's see. If you try to steal my macaroni, I'm gonna be. Mm, 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 mm. And if you successfully steal my macaroni, why? Why would you do that? Uh, if I steal your macaroni, it's just all according to Keikaku. Nothing personnel, kid. If I'm trying to seduce you for your macaroni, and we get a little kissy. Mwah. Mwah, 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 mwah. Mwah. But if you kiss me instead, then... Oh. Aww. I was supposed to kiss you. You're not supposed to kiss me. I am the kisser. No, 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 no. We've also got... If someone discusses the possibility of stealing my macaroni. I don't like that. No, no, no. If you surprise me with a kiss. Look, I happen to enjoy macaroni, so sue me. Just, so sue me, okay? I happen to enjoy macaroni. I'm gonna go over here now. Nah, I'm gonna stay over here. I can also get just a little sad, a little cry. Oh, I've already shown that one, though. I'm too excited about showing it. That makes me a little embarrassed, though, that I made such an amateur mistake as to show off the same thing twice. I'm sorry. Also,
Jessenian gifted a tier 1 sub to Pig Julep. This is their first gift sub in the channel.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, though, there's a couple of other things. Now, if you liked original Flavor Bee without her glasses better, well, I can... Oh, sorry. My glasses slip a little bit on my nose. Let me just push those back up. But I can also just take them all the way off for you. You know, if you want to see my big old peepers a little better. Also, a really fun thing about my peepers, so, as I'm going to discuss in a little bit, my official lore, it's always been my lore, I just haven't shared it, but my lore is that I was created by the power of love and slightly mad science, mostly alchemy. So, you can see that in each of my pupils, I've got, hold on, there we go. In each of my pupils, I've got this little symbol in the middle, and that's the alchemical symbol for an amalgam or an amalgamation. You know, a combination of several things that are unlike each other put together. So I got a little bit of lore right there in my eye. Alright, let's... Oh, uh-oh, I've rotated. Let's... and straighten. Oh, where did I go? Oh no! Ah! No, still rotating! Put me back! Whoop, whoop. Whoa, there I am. Whoop. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, alright, I got it. I got it, don't worry. Oh, yep, also very important for me. Oh my god, thank you so much for the hype train! Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you! But as you can see, I also have a little bit of booba physics. Not a ton of booba physics, because IRL, I don't have a ton of booba physics, but I wanted to give myself a little bit of jiggle, as a treat. So, let me see if I can... Yeah, you can see, they've got a little bit of jiggle, as a treat. But this was also my first foray into trying out some new show feet. Okay, there you go. Here, let me yeah, 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 yeah. Is this what you wanted, Julep? Is this what you wanted? I hope this is what you wanted. But this is also my first time with trying out some toggles. So if I want to do an illustration stream, well, first off, I gotta take off some of these layers because they'll get too hot when I'm all sweaty and working on drawing. But that's, I think, yep, there we go. And as you can see, the tracking is accurate, so I'll be able to draw on stream and actually draw on stream. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to be fun. We also got simpler toggles for. I mean, it's really hot out, so you guys won't be mad if I maybe like take off some of my clothing. Just not all of my clothing. TOS. No Monka TOS. No Monka TOS. No. But yeah, so I can take some clothes off if I want to get a little cooler. But I also have some just really simple test animations that I did with this model. So I can do that, I can do that. And if I get really, really stimulated, I can do this. So yeah. Yeah. Also, I I don't know what these are. Oh, okay. Apparently that's a thing I can do. Yep, I can now stim. I can now stim, and it's very, very good. And yes, I do in fact have a no, this one. I do in fact have a heart on my wrist because I wear my heart on my sleeve. All right. So I'm gonna check something real quick, and then I'll probably be jumping right into doing my my lore. So let me ask you all, chat, are you interested in learning a little more about little old me? Hmm? Hmm? You want to know where I come from, where I go, where I come from, with no Cotton Eyed Joes. That's very important to me. No Cotton Eyed Joes. I'm seeing some yes, share those details. Yes. Ooh, SCS, yes. Yes, work for B. I I don't know if I can work for myself. Well, actually, no, yeah. I mean, I've gotten paid for this, so I guess I am working for myself. Nice. All right, so I haven't totally timed this out properly, but I think I should have just enough time to make this work and look real smooth. So let's see. Here we go. Okay. Now it's the big test. Is it going to load? Is it going to load? In all of my initial tests, it did not work. Oh, but it works. Oh, I can't see chat anymore for now, so uh, I guess please hold all potential questions until the end. Let me just take a little sippy. I got some nice hot tea here. All right. So, let me open up my book. The Tale of Beatrix Bunny. Hmm. Oh, I did not know that that was a tag that I could do. Sorry, responding to something in chat. I did not know that was a tag that I could do, Obsidia, but after the slideshow, I guess I'll have to add it in. Thank you for letting me know. Unfortunately, I can't switch out of this slide now that I'm in it until I finish it, so... Oh well? Hopefully it will be alright still. Anyway, Tale of Beatrix Spy. Now this story, as with the stories of many people, starts not with them, but with two other people. Once upon a time, in a forest not so far away, there lived a whole community of animal folk. There were folks of all sorts of shapes and sizes. But two of these folk, Susan Rabbit and James Deer, met each other one day. Susan was a librarian, a quiet rabbit by trade. James was a far more outgoing, energetic young stag. But there was something here in the opposites that attracted, that brought these two together in a bond of love. They eventually wed and came to be quite happy together, but they couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was absent. Not to get too blue, as this is but a children's story, but as fate would have it, a rabbit and a deer were not the most compatible bodies to bring another new life into this world. They searched high and low for something that might allow them to have a child. And finally, at long last, at the far, far edge of a neighboring village, they found a doctor in name, at least, if not in degree. Dr. Valentine was their name, you see. And where other doctors feared to tread, Dr. Valentine boldly leapt in head first. They performed strange miracles, seemingly creating life where no life could be, or life in a form that could not be, and no other doctor could hope to match their skill. So James and Susan went to Dr. Valentine, and sensing the challenge, Dr. Valentine set to work. It was not an easy task. They needed to gather together bits and bobs of bodies, some skin here, some bone there, a little muscle, a little organ, and, of course, a little soul, for it was very hard to create life without a soul. It took many more bodies than either the couple or the doctor could have expected. 6, to be precise. 6 bodies, 6 souls. But eventually, a child began to form. They were very small, of course, as all babies are when they are first born. And there was some fears, perhaps. that the baby wouldn't last or wouldn't grow past that. But with a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope, a whole lot of love, and the help of the best slightly mad science that could be found, grow she did. She was a child not just of Susan and James, nor just of Dr. Valentine, nor even just of the communities that they raised her in, but a child of all of them. After all, it takes a village to raise a child, even a child as strange as this. And that child, dear listeners, grew up to be me. And that is where the story, to my origin at least, comes to an end. But that's not where this slideshow comes to an end by any stretch. Don't you worry. Now that you've learned where I come from, how about we talk about where I am? So let's get to know me a little bit. Hmm? So, Beatrix at a glance. My pronouns are preferred she, her, but I'll gladly accept they, them. I identify as asexual and panromantic, so I can and do catch feelings for pretty much anyone if the connection is there. But the feelings don't extend to uh, some of my body. I'm a jackalope, the scientific name Lepus temperamental sorry, science has never been my strong suit. Lepus temperamentalis, which is the hybrid of an antelope and a jackrabbit, not to be confused with the Central American deer rabbit, which is a closely related but distinct species. I'm also what the anime and weeaboo community call a kimono mimi, or scientific name, Homo sapiens animalis aves, which is, just like a person with animal ears and stuff. My height is 5'3", 5'10" if you count the antlers, and about 6'2" if you also count the ears, or 160 centimeters, 177.8 centimeters, and 187.96 centimeters for people with more functional distance measurements. Weight? Heavier than you'd think, honestly. Heavier than I think, usually. And my birthday is February 26th. Now, I'm afraid that I will need to briefly, ever so briefly, pause here because I just needed to check. Now, sorry, someone in my chat recommended that I add a debut tag, but I'm afraid I can't seem to find it. Oh, sorry. Oh, for now, that will wait. Let's get back to this. So, what are my streams like? If you've just arrived because you heard about me for my premiere, then, well, you probably aren't as experienced with what I usually do on my streams. I most frequently find myself drawing digital artwork, though unfortunately my tablet has recently tragically died, so that will be a little postponed for now. I also enjoy playing roguelikes and RPGs very much, as well as tabletop games. I am a huge fan of tabletop RPGs. Most people, of course, best know those as, oh yes, D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and those things, but I'll get a little more into what I mean by those later on. And I don't think I would turn down a good card game, board game, dice game, anything like that. I also, however, enjoy story-driven games, games about adventure exploration, horror, and even some shooters. Though I'm fairly picky with my shooters. Uh, According to my audience, my streams most often can be described as fun, silly, relaxed, and comfy, or to sum up, the kind of stream you could take home to meet your parents. I still have some pretty big goals for things that I would love to do more on my streams as well in the coming months and years, I hope. We'll see. Those are things like I knew Japanese when I went to Monster College, but unfortunately, time and my own poor memory has robbed me of a lot of what I used to know. I would love to relearn it though, and I think that sharing that with other people, i.e., all of you, might make it a little better motivation than me just doing it privately for my own sake. I also cosplay. I have done a lot of cosplays in the past. I'll go into a little more detail on that a little later, but once I'm able to get a second camera set up and can really focus on that, one of my goals is to make it so that I can sew and craft together cosplay and costume components live on stream for people. So that's also one of my goals. Uh, I've been a huge avid player of tabletop games for ages, but I really want to also try to design some myself. Now, some of this will be as simple as just homebrew content for existing games, but others might end up being entirely new game systems all their own. One idea that I had that I've been working on is a RPG system where you play both as a giant kaiju style movie monster and also part of the society affected and interacting with the monster. Or another system is about animals left behind by humanity after the end of the world, uplifting and creating their own new society and trying to survive together. So that's another thing I'd love to do. And finally, karaoke and singing workshops. I have actually been singing for a really long time, and I'm almost a little embarrassed that I haven't done it as much when it comes to the actual stream. So that's something I'd really like to do, even if it just has to end up being unrecorded, no VOD streams for DMCA reasons. I'd still love to sing more for people. And likewise, while I was never trained to be a formal music teacher, I still have picked up enough tips and tricks here and there that I think it might be really nice to be able to help other people who might like to sing more or might like to feel that they can sing better do just that. Oh, there we go. So, I kind of already hit on some of these, but let's go over some of my special skills. I am a professionally trained actress and storyteller, or as I like to call it, I paid a lot of money to go to fool school and became a bard. Uh, Pretty straightforward. I have been acting for, at this point, I think a dozen and a half years. So, yeah, probably around like 15 years. I no, I've never been in anything uh big. I personally preferred voice acting, which I never really made any inroads in there, but I did some stuff here and there. One of the first big projects I did that got any attention was actually a uh, a NSFW comic starring the Undertale characters Metaton and Papyrus. So my first big break, I guess, came from making robot orgasm noises because a skeleton touched his special buttons. I'm a professional. And I've also been singing basically since as long as I can remember. I've been trained in uh, choral singing, a cappella, pop, musical, and the one that I get the least chance to break out and show is opera. I've actually been trained as an opera singer, and while it's something I've gotten even less training with, I've also been trained as a Japanese no theater singer. So there's that too. As I said before, I draw an awful lot. Uh, I'm finally getting to the point as an artist where I feel comfortable enough thinking that my art is good to just say, yeah, I draw pretty good. It took me years and years and years to get there, but I'm pretty happy I got there. I also do commissions, so if you ever want something drawn, that's me shooting little pan-romantic finger guns at the camera. As I said before, amateur seamstress and cosplayer. Some of my greatest hits of cosplay, Yoko Ritona from Gurren Lagann, Muffet and Undyne from Undertale. One of the more recent ones that I was really proud of was Ares from Fairy Tale. I'm a monster and folklore historian, because of course, I think everyone should be able to know and remember their own cultures. Also, it's because my brains, as a tiny, wee autistic babe, just decided, hey, you know this special interest you have right now of folklore and mythology? What if that just became something that you loved your entire life? Oh, sorry, that wasn't a hypothetical. That's just something we're gonna do now. And 日本語が話します。でも、たくさん思いません. I do speak Japanese, but have forgotten most of it. Couple random fun facts. I was part of an amateur idol group for about 3 years. We were the local Japanese society's performers. We made our own costumes. We had a professional choreographer that worked with us. We didn't do singing, admittedly. We didn't really do singing, but we looked the part, we acted the part, and I mean, you could argue a lot of pop singers don't actually sing while they're dancing, so I think we sounded the part too. I'm pretty proud of it, and I still have the idol costume in my closet. I lived abroad in Japan for a year. This was a really big one for little Bunny Bee to have wanted to do throughout her life and then finally actually did it. I wasn't a functional adult and had a lot of problems during that year, but I still really enjoyed it. I have lived through most forms of natural disaster. I've gone through tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, lightning storms, earthquakes, and monsoons. I'm still missing tsunami slash tidal waves, forest fire, and Mudslide to complete my bingo card. Also, I thought I had lost a finger to a goose until I was 6. I apparently didn't actually tell my partner this particular story until I was setting up the slideshow. So, to explain a little bit, when I was a very tiny bee, I was a very impressionable child. And my father, my papa dear, decided it would be a fun little joke to tell me when we went to a petting zoo that a goose had bitten off a sixth finger that I was born with. And that's just something I believed until I was 6 years old and finally thought to question, hey, maybe this wasn't true. So that's just a fun little embarrassing story for me. How about, though, we do a bunch of favorites? I was almost thinking not doing this as like not budgeting like a full hour for this, but nope. I talk a lot about my things that are favorite. So of course, VTubers, you know that I'm gonna enjoy some anime, so let's go through some of my most personally significant choices. Nope. So Tungen Toppa Gurren Lagann. This one was a defining anime for me, I think. Basically, I had a lot of difficulties in high school feeling like I was in a good place emotionally. I had a lot of issues with depression and motivation, and it wasn't a good place. But despite all of the existential depression I was experiencing, Gurren Lagann was probably the perfect counterpoint to that. Because Gurren Lagann actually goes as far as to literally get into a fist fight with an embodiment of existential depression and wins. So that was very important, very significant. Also, Yoko, of course, I mentioned earlier, was one of my earliest cosplays, and I credit her with starting to break open my egg. Digimon. Digimon was arguably one of, if not the first anime that I ever watched. Well before I actually knew what anime was. Digimon was an important part of my life. Also, it is still actually kind of a big part of my life. Uh, I a few years ago at this point got the idea of, hey, what if I went back to actually rewatch this series that I loved so much as a child, and what if I just actually tried to sit down and analyze it? And I got a friend to help me with that, and we have a very on again, off again podcast called Digipod out that is going episode by episode doing just that. You can actually find a link to it in the panels down below. But I still really love it. It's a great coming of age story, I think, and it overall has aged pretty well. Mob Psycho 100. This was a very recent one. I was first drawn to this series because of the art style. It's such a visually distinct and eye-catching look to how everything's drawn. It's not trying to be pretty, it's not trying to be cool, it's just being itself. That's what drew me in, but then what kept me in is how ultimately the core themes of Mob Psycho is that, like, yes, he's this incredibly powerful psychic, but that's that's not even his strength. His strength is that he's consistently trying to bring out the best in people, that he's always trying to solve problems with kindness and with understanding first and foremost. And like that's still a message that I really need. I think that that's the kind of That's the kind of approach to life that I really like to try to aspire to. Okay, so Kill la Kill, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. I know that is it a philosophically good anime? Is it a thematically good anime? Arguably not. Is it an anime that is very stylish and very memorable? Definitely. Is it an anime that I was able to watch as new episodes were coming out while I was in Japan and my friends were all back home, and it created a sense of connection and gave me an anchor to emotional issues during that year? Yes. Would I try to aspire to be stepped on by Satsuki Kirin? No. However, I might still end up cosplaying Ryoko one day. At the very least, she and I both eat lemons raw, so we have that in common. Hunter x Hunter. This was one of the first manga I picked up, and one of the ones that I followed the longest. I first actually really enjoyed Togashi's older work, Yu Yu Hakusho, but I think Hunter x Hunter is where he really came into his own. It's very imaginative, very energetic. The cast of main characters you really end up getting connected to, and it's a shonen that I still end up coming back to. So it's pretty good. Bakano. Bakano was something I was introduced to in college, and artistically, I think it's probably one of the most like well written and most interestingly written stories because for like I don't know a way to say for the first half to two-thirds of the series you don't actually know what's going on and make it sound like that's a compliment, but it is a compliment. It is a show that really masterfully takes the idea of having like a dozen different protagonist perspective characters and weaving together a plot that manages to tie together the modern day, the 1920s, the 1700s in a way that is still really engaging and you want to keep watching. Also, it's one of the few animes I'll say specifically because it's set in the 1920s of America. It's one of those anime that personally I think the dub way better suited to the subject than the subs. You can fight me on this if you want, but that'll just help the algorithm boost me. Fate Zero. Fate Zero, it was the first Fate series I actually watched all the way through, though I was very familiar with everything up till then. Um, Honestly, I've kind of grown away from the author's style of writing. It's a little too constantly pessimistic and depressing for me. I'm looking at you, Puella Magi, Madoka Magica. Oh, I can't.
It wasn't showing.
Oh, sorry. That was one of my producers slash my partner epitome. But I really love the Fate series because, of course, it ties into my hyper fixation special interest in mythology and folklore. Fate Zero is also a pretty competently written one, I'll say. Also, uh, Iskandar and his master Waver, one of the surprisingly best romances between two male characters I've seen in shonen to date. Like, it's not technically officially a romance, but it is impossible. If you watch Fate Zero, watch the interaction between those characters, and then fucking try and tell me that it's not a love story. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Princess Jellyfish. This one came into my life when I was still in a questioning period for my gender, and honestly, that hit a really strong point for me. It's a story all about a bunch of nerds, and really how everyone is a nerd and a weirdo for something or another, but coming to understandings beyond that. Also, it helped that at that point I didn't know what exactly I wanted to be more, a pretty boy that would be able to constantly pass and look super gorgeous in outfits, or a really homely girl next door type. I ended up starting college more more the pretty boy, ended up finishing starting to move towards the homely girl next door, and you know what? I'm still pretty satisfied with that trajectory. And finally, keep your hands off Isoken. This was a very, very special one. It's a series that you can tell is made by someone who is not just super well versed and knowledgeable about how animation is done as an art form, as a business, but someone who is super super passionate. Like this is someone's hyperfixation, I feel like. And honestly, it was a joy to see from one artist to another how the creative process is translated and how the world of the internal imagination is brought outwards. It was a wonderful, very soothing ride from start to finish for me. All right, I'll be able to go a little quicker during games. Honestly, most of these aren't games that like I super have like deep feelings on, except one. So I'll be able to go a little quick. These are basically like, okay, what at what platform of game system during did I have in my life, and what game did I like playing for it? So we've got Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing was one of the first games I got on the GameCube, and it's still a game that holds a lot of special meaning to me. Obviously, last year when the world was ending for the umpteenth time, Animal Crossing was something that really anchored me and gave me a sense of something to do, something to at least get kind of a routine going for day to day. And it was still pretty good for that. That said, I don't know if I can bring myself to go back to my village because I am terrified of being judged by those little animals. Panel de Pomme. This is one I really, really recently picked up, but I've ended up actually really liking. I don't usually go for puzzle games, like, at all, because I'm a dumb bunny and I don't do puzzles good. But Panel de Pomme, and maybe it's just because of the art aesthetic, but it really drew me in, and honestly, it's probably one of my most played Switch games. Going back to the GBA, though, the Game Boy report of Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island was the first real Game Boy Advance game I had that set some kind of love in me for video games. The art style, the aesthetic, the controls, the level design, everything about this game, still going back to playing it again today, still hits me. Wonderful trip. Then for the DS, it was Kirby Superstar Ultra. I always loved Kirby. I love that funky little pink marshmallow motherfucker. I loved the fact that I got like fucking 13 games in one in that game. That was a good deal. And finally, the only game I looked at this and thought, okay, this game actually means something to me. Undertale came out at a time in my life where I had been out of college for a year. I had been unemployed, still living with my parents, and I had absolutely no direction in life. I was in a constant depressed malaise, and Undertale was honestly what started shaking me out of that. Just this overwhelming sense of love in this game that runs throughout it. It is something that really touched me when I played through it, and it made me realize that although I felt completely aimless, there was still so many people out there that still really loved and cared for me. And that helped me kind of start getting my things together and getting right in what I wanted to do. So yeah, make jokes about SNAS Undertale and Komaeda having Energy Sword and Dick's Sunday or whatever, but it still meant a lot to me. Oh, and Binding of Isaac Repentance. Uh, I I initially didn't even think to include this one before Epitome pointed out, "Hey, you have over 1,800 hours playing this game. I think it might be your favorite." And honestly, while I'm not always a fan of the really grungy, gross out, goth, depressive aesthetic of the game, or sometimes how it ends up being a little too edgy for its own good, the core of the game is a really, really well made, really tight roguelike top down shooter that I super enjoy. And also, the story is presented in a way that is very subtle. You don't even have to read into it if you don't want to. But it paints a story of a child who is dealing with a very abusive family member in their lives and just trying to process trauma through creativity and escaping into imagination. And the fact that you can get all of that in a game where you can regularly like dig through piles of poop for little pennies and stuff, that's pretty impressive, I think. I'm gonna take a little sippy. Also, before I go on, let me briefly check chat. How you doing, chat? Still doing good? I can briefly see you now. Oh, ooh, wow. I'll have to go back to check this all. Caption is on its A game today. Nice, 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 nice. Ooh. All right, so tabletop games. The newest one in my collection, City of Mist. This is a game that I only learned about last year, but it absolutely blew me away conceptually, and I love playing it. Also, every other Thursday, you can see the peculiar little roleplay crew running a City of Mist campaign in which they're all gay disasters who are professional phantom thieves. But City of Mist, it is in a archetypal city, like a city that has everything that makes a city in it, and it's pervaded by this strange power called the Mist. And the Mist is like the embodiment of all humanity's creative ideals. Every story, every bit of folklore, everything that's ever been thought of and dreamed about and imagined is part of the Mist. And it can sometimes choose completely ordinary people to reenact its story, to make it be brought into the world again in some new way. So you can end up with a party composed of like a florist who is channeling a Spider-Man, a plumber who is the reincarnation of Zeus, and a private detective who has all of the powers of Humpty Dumpty. It's that kind of weird off the wall stuff that you can put together in here. And then to take all of these weird storybook powered people and to then put them in a world full of like high urban fantasy film noir plots. Mwah. Love to see it, love to play it. Deadlands. Deadlands was one of the earliest systems I played, and still one that's very near and dear to my heart. Basically, imagine the Wild West, but imagine that history got really fucked up, like to the point that the South dividing off into its own country is the least remarkable change to the timeline. Like a gate to literal hell has opened up, filling the world with magic and demons and all kinds of monsters and stuff. That's Deadlands. Deadlands, classic, I prefer. There's technically a remake, but the remake boils everything down super far, and it just doesn't really hit the same way for me. But in Deadlands, you can you could be a completely ordinary person and honestly probably be pretty safe, but you could also be empowered by a pact with the divine. You could be a wizard who gets magic by playing poker with devils. You could be a mad scientist getting a little bit madder because you're breaking reality by listening to the whispers of demons in your sleep. It's that kind of absolute weirdness going on, coupled with just old fashioned Wild West bang bang, pachoo, pachoo, shoot 'em up adventure stuff. It's really fun. It is also a very confusing system that scares off a lot of newbies because to play it, you need to play classics properly. You need a die of every size from D4 to D20. You need at least two full decks of playing cards, including jokers. You also need a bunch of paper clips and a collection of poker chips that I think is in the ballpark of like 75 to 80 or so. But once you get past those hurdles, very fun, very silly, very much potential to have some heavy political incorrectness. But if you get past that and you write the stories good, very high quality spaghetti western fun. Monster of the Week. This is a very simple system to pick up and play. Basically, all of the rules are divided up so that each person only really needs to know what they need to know, and you basically act out Monster of the Week shows. Things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, The X-Files, those kind of things, where you're just hunting monsters to make sure that they don't hurt people and that kind of thing, investigating mysteries. It's a lot of fun, very easy to have your characters die in, but also pretty fun, campy, high melodrama too, at least potentially. Scion. Oh, Scion. So, for Scion, imagine a world, I'll say like, partway between Percy Jackson and the Olympian series of novels and the American Gods book by Neil Gaiman. This is a world that looks on the surface a lot like the normal world that you and I live in. However, in fact, every deity that people have genuinely, truly believed in is real. Every pantheon. They're not mutually exclusive. They're all there. They're all real. And unfortunately, all of the monsters, spirits, and predecessors to the gods are also there. And hey, turns out a lot of those predecessor entities, they're starting to come back, and that's not good. So you are the children of gods, or supernatural creatures, or reincarnations of gods, and you are going around basically slowly building up a legend of your own, and as you go through the tiers, you go from mostly mortal to, like, demigod to, if you make it and survive long enough as a character, you eventually get to ascend to become a brand new god of your pantheon. And it's so cool, and it's so interesting, and the first edition is such a fucking mess that I cannot honestly suggest playing Scion first edition at all. It was cobbled together with, like, a carcass of a World of Darkness system, along with part of the Exalted system, just sort of meshed together. If you play only with the characters that are pre-made for it, it can kind of work. If you want to play your own characters or homebrew anything, good fucking luck. But that said, the fact that I've stuck with it long enough to get to second edition, that should probably say a lot about just how much I enjoy this game and what it can bring out in storytelling. Changeling the Lost. So I knew that I had to put some version of the World of Darkness systems on here because I really like that mix of fantasy, of urban fantasy and horror that the World of Darkness / Chronicles of Darkness series brings out. And to be honest, I could honestly probably talk a fair bit about any of these. Don't fucking get me started on how disappointed I am in Werewolf the Forsaken. because I'll go on that diatribe if I have to. But the reason I chose Changeling the Lost is because in each of these different game lines, the horror and the monsters are thematically representing something. Like, for they each have a driving question. For the vampire system, it's a question of how can I maintain my sense of humanity when I've become something truly monstrous that I hate? For werewolf, okay, werewolf's a bad example. It doesn't really have one. Uh, for mage, it's basically I have incredible godlike powers, but how can I actually use them without falling victim to godlike hubris? And for Changeling, it's simply a question of can I rebuild my life after the worst experiences of my life have come and gone? In it, you are playing as someone who was once an ordinary person, but was abducted by a member of the true Fae. The fairy, the Fae folk, the gentry, the kindly ones, whatever you want to call it, that kind of entity. You are brought into a fairy world, a world where stories and narrative and madness and creativity blur together in a constantly shifting reality, and you experienced some very intense forms of trauma. But the game is not about reveling or lingering in that trauma. This is the game after you have escaped from Fairy World and made it back to the real world. This is not a game about the worst experience of your life. It is about how you pull together the scraps of who you once were and the person you are now and the people around you supporting you, how you pull all of that together to create something new that can become a new life for you. The fact that it also feeds very heavily off of fairy folklore, folklore in general, huge, huge plus. But honestly, the core theme that brought me to it is just that ultimately pretty hopeful take on horror of the worst is over. Let's help you rebuild. Speaking of broken people fixing things, Unknown Armies. Unknown Armies is one of my favorite lesser known gems, and how to explain Unknown Armies? So imagine a world which is like our world, but different. Uh, it's powered by the humanist centric viewpoint of if people believe it, it can be true. And sure, that can go for like mythologies and stuff, but it also more frequently goes for like fears, for urban legends, for conspiracy theories. All of those are true. The world is controlled by this invisible clergy of archetypes of what humans can be. Someone is the archetypal fool, the trickster, the warrior, the healer, the mother. They shape society, they shape the world. We're just living in it. So, what can you do in that kind of world? You can try to channel those archetypes to bring them into you and take on their powers. You can try to stare at reality and little faults and flaws and paradoxes in reality so hard until reality fucking blinks. And next thing you know, you can turn into a fucking swan, or you can light your hands on fire by magic. You can be a completely mundane person. And this is actually a campaign that works, not campaign, a system that works really well in incentivizing you to think that normal people actually have it pretty good because they don't have these magically empowered mental blocks or obsessions that they have to deal with. They can just be whatever they want to be. And speaking of mental blocks and issues and obsessions, this game has one of, if not the best, like one of the best conceptualized versions of displaying emotional trauma and the effects therein in anything I've ever seen. Like, throw out Call of Cthulhu and its madness and insanity and all this. This is actually a very, very in-depth analysis of how mental health affects us. So basically, you start off being very good at certain things, but the more you experience trauma, the more hardened or fragile you can become towards it, and the more you develop other skills to cope with it. So, for example, uh, there's one of these skill tracks, and each of these skill tracks have on one side skills that normal or not normal, but healthier people have more easily. Of the other, the more damaged, more traumatized people have more easily. But for one of them, if you have not experienced a whole lot of trauma in regards to your sense of self, then you can be very confident in the things that you know to be true to be true. If you've had to live a life where you have to lie about things that you know aren't how you say they are, or if you've had to be very secret, very hidden about the kind of person you are, or the beliefs you have, or anything like that, you get very good at lying and deceiving. But because you've gotten so good at lying and deceiving, you start to second guess even yourself. You aren't as confident in the things that you know to be true anymore because, well, if you're able to lie this easily, what if you're actually wrong about this other thing? And it's like that for all different kinds of emotional trauma, and it just goes in a very holistic, very caring way of looking at it. That said, this is also an urban fantasy horror game. You might be noticing a bit of a theme with my favorite kinds of games. But Unknown Armies is not a scary game that is scary because the things are actually unknown. It's scary because every fucked up magical supernatural creature or spell or event that has all happened because someone out there thought of something and decided, I want to do that. I am going to make this happen. And they succeeded. The scary thing isn't because people try and fail to fight these things. It's because people tried and succeeded to make these terrible things and to make this weird, messed up, broken world. But, you know, the game acknowledges everyone is at least a little messed up and broken in their own special way. And it's not a game about relishing in that. It's a game about accepting that and working together to make the world a little less broken, a little less fucked up, a little better. Sleepaway. This is a game that I only very, very recently discovered, but it means a lot to me too. So the premise is that you are all of the players, there's no one GM. All of the players are counselors that work at a sleepaway camp. And the sleepaway camp is a very special place because no matter where a kid comes from, no matter what they've gone through at home, no matter what terrible thing they might have to go back to, this is the one place that they have and that you as the counselors have that is safe, that is supporting, where they can be totally unabashedly themselves and feel accepted and loved for that. However, the sleepaway camp is not without a problem. There is a creature, the hide behind. It represents the worst that humanity has to offer. It represents everything that the sleepaway camp is a refuge from. The bigotry, the hatred, the hostility that will turn someone who you thought you knew into a hateful monster of a person. And the game is all about trying to preserve the sanctity and the safety of this camp for the marginalized children that come to it, while also trying to combat a monster that you can never truly destroy because it represents things that you can never totally get away from. You can make things better, but it's always going to be there. So you always have to keep fighting because the camp, the safety, the peace, and the love that it brings are always worth it. And finally, Dungeons and Dragons. It's all right. Honestly, this was my first exposure to tabletop games. Still a pretty special one, but like, while I enjoy it, it's kind of like popcorn for me. I enjoy it, I have fun with it, I enjoy running it, I enjoy playing it, but like, you know, sometimes I'm in the mood for a snack of popcorn, other times I'm in the mood to really sink my teeth into something. But D&D, great snack food of tabletop games. And now just a few more miscellaneous stuff. TV series, I couldn't pick a specific one, so I just picked the franchise of Kamen Rider as a whole. It is Japanese live-action superhero series with the only real commonality is that every character is a transforming masked kung fu, well, not kung fu, but like martial artist who has some kind of vehicle they ride, and that pretty much that's it. So like one series, it could be about a detective who is working with his gay partner to solve mysteries. Another one could be about a high school comedy in the vein of like The Breakfast Club and just making friends with people. Another could be about how there is an alien reality trying to invade ours, and the main characters all start off as fucking dance battlers before they gather together to fight magical evil fruit. I wish I could make this shit up, but I'm not as good as some of the wild white writers for Kamen Rider. A film is something that's pretty hard for me to pick a specific thing for, because when I think of favorite films, I end up thinking too broadly. I end up just saying, like, okay, well, my favorite specifically comedy is this, my favorite animated is this, my favorite romance is that. So instead, what I decided is I picked a favorite director, which is Guillermo del Toro. I picked him because I realized that like a lot of the favorites that I could think of ended up being connected back to him. Like my favorite one of my favorite action movies, Pacific Rim. Another one of my favorite action movies, Hellboy. My favorite drama, Pan's Labyrinth. My favorite love story, Shape of Water. And like there's a lot of directors which I feel kind of sort of get things and like really vibe with me, but Guillermo, I don't know why I'm stumbling over Guillermo, Guillermo del Toro. He just always hits it out of the park for me. I have yet to see a del Toro movie that I like, and sort of doubt that that exists. The fact that most of them have really cool monsters, a contributing factor. Probably. Favorite book? Good Omens. I struggled with this one too because while I was one of those kids that read a ton in elementary school and middle school, by the time that it started being that, oh no, reading isn't something you do for fun, reading is something you have to do for school, and I sort of just fell off the train for a while. But Good Omens was one of the books that really brought me back, and it's one that still holds up to me. I mean, Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, they didn't know it when they wrote this book since it was kind of at the start of their careers, but they were a fucking dream team. This is an absolute delight of a romantic comedy about the end of the world. And if you haven't read it and read books, I highly recommend checking it out. If you haven't read it, don't read books, but do have an Amazon account, the adaptation is actually pretty good too. In case you might have figured out earlier, based off of how much I was talking about macaroni in my my demo of talking about my poses and emotes and things, that's my favorite food. Nothing really special or deep about it. I just fucking love a good macaroni and cheese. And of course, I also love one very, very special boy. He's come into my life very recently, but he has already become a truly special part of it, and that is Totoro, our cat. He is this little gray tabby who might have a little bit of Maine Coon in him. We're not sure, but he's got like kind of the M going on. But he is an absolute delight. The very first time we met him, as soon as the cage was opened, he was immediately all over us, trying to rub his scent on us, purring up a storm, demanding pets and cuddles. So we were only going there to maybe consider get some practice for when we eventually adopt a cat in the future. But no, he decided those people, those are gonna be my fucking people, and he adopted us. We just had to catch up with him. But he is an absolute darling, and if he ever found a place in the streaming room that was like reliable and predictable enough that I would absolutely put a cat cam on this wonderful good boy. So now I'm gonna open it up to questions. So, I think this is probably the best thing I can do. Oh, also, thank you for the hydrate and the posture check. Also, thank you, Venti. Thank you so much for the raid. Can I get a shout out for Ventagram? Thank you, thank you. Yeah. All right, so I'll probably click through a little bit for this, just because I want to make sure I also get to the other segments of the stuff I got tonight. But yeah, I am opening up to any questions for now. Also, while you think of questions, a couple of quick things. Thank you to @Jar of Ruby's Art for the background that I used for the slideshow here. Thank you very, very much to @Hemlock Stone for the adorable illustrations a la Beatrix Potter for my backstory. Thank you also to myself for drawing the model art and doing all of the rigging. If you want to check me out on Twitter, that's my Twitter handle. You can also check me out on Discord. Epitome, could I get a ! Discord also to give people a link if they'd like to join up there? Thank you very much. And I think, yeah, that's the last of it. So, let me jump from there back into just chatting briefly. So, how y'all doing, chat? Still holding up well, I hope? Alright. Well, I try. Wait, is the captions not working? Let me check this real quick. Yeah, it looks like the captions are broken, at least the on-screen ones. Unfortunate. I don't know how to fix this. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Venti! Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, that makes me so happy I'm gonna do my little stimming. This is my happy stim dance. Alright, so, I'm going to briefly check in with Epitome to see the status on dinner. Okay. Alright, so we got some time now. Well, thank you. So I'm going to set up the next section of the stream, which is going to be where we open it up to some games. But first, let me scroll up through chat to see. Oh, come on. Let me scroll up through chat to see if we get any questions here. Oh wow, I really gotta scroll way up here. Also, thank you so much to anyone who did a raid or a sub or anything like that while I was in full window and couldn't respond. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, let's see. As far back as the chat will go. Boop, 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 natural disaster bingo. Yep. We have been together 9 years. It started off a little rough, admittedly, but we got there. It's been a good 9 years. Reading the chat.
Ooh.
I heard. Oh no! I heard the cow, but I don't have that overlay on here right now. Ah! I'm sorry.
The cow is with us in spirit.
The cow is with us in spirit. Oh gosh. Alright. I think I scrolled back through. So, are we going to do Jackbox and Gardic Phone and stuff soon? Yes. I might have asked this before, but is there a special reason you went with a jackalope? Alright, so, to explain that a little bit, um, I identify as a non-binary trans woman, and oh, hold on a second. Totoro has been brought into the room in baby style. Hello, hello, my son. You don't want to kiss me. That's okay. But I had been thinking for a while about what kind of monster best fit with my personal identity gender wise, and what I came up with is that. Oh, also to explain, if you've never been a queer fan of monsters and horror and that stuff, there's kind of a reason for it. It's kind of because, like, most of our lives, by a lot of parts of society, we've been treated as something horrifying and monstrous. So, like, of course we identify with those. But I was trying to think, what kind of monster would best represent me? And thinking about, like, non-binary in terms of being something that isn't really one thing and it's not really the other thing, but it's this entire third separate thing which blends elements of both together and really comes through in a way like that. And I ended up thinking, okay, so it has to be some kind of chimera. Uh, Now, the reason I got to jackalope specifically, though, is, well, first off, rabbits have always been very important to me. My mama bun did actually name me after a Beatrix Potter character, and then when I started transitioning, I renamed myself in honor of Beatrix Potter, so it's a very important link to me. But also, for a while, I felt kind of like I was a form of living dead because, like, I think I I think part of me when I was growing up never thought that I would live this long. I just figured one way or another, one reason or another, I would just, like, not be around this long. So when I got here, I felt kind of like I had, like, died and was now just this undead left to deal with it. So that's kind of where the undead element came in from for the jackalope. Like, I'm not the person I was. The person that I grew up with in many ways is dead. Partially because of mental health issues, but also because of the gender stuff and the transitioning. Like, I'm not the person that I was as a child. I never will be again, and that's not a bad thing. Like, that version of me lived, and they served their purpose. They served me well, but they were done with they were done with this body, and it was just time for a new version of me to take it. So I guess that's how the taxidermy part got brought in, or the undead part got brought in. The taxidermy was actually just a fun idea of like, well, if I was going to be a if I was going to be a jackalope, a creature that doesn't actually like exist in real life, but only exists as a taxidermy, then the kind of like Frankenstein looking sort of patchwork person would have to be how a jackalope person would look, right? So that's how that worked. All right, Bunny, I'm giving you two options. Give me your toes or give me head pats. No in between. Ooh, well, I don't have the head pats set up for the just chatting stream. So here, oh no. Oh no, hold on. VTube Studio, wrong window. Here we go. So let me just, yeah, yeah. I step on you, PG. Yeah, yeah. Is this what you wanted? Is this what you're into? Also, thank you very much, Yura Shia, for joining the Warren. I hope you enjoy it here very, very much. Either works, Misty, and thanks for stopping by. Oh, thank you! Thank you, thank you, thank you! And hello, I hope you enjoy it here. Chin scratches? Chin scratches I also don't have set up quite yet, but I'll be working on that soon. I'll have my top scientists working on that. Alright. But thank you. I worked hard on my bones and muscles to be able to wave. Alright, so I think at this point, well, Doc Valentine, yeah, but there's like a whole team of scientists, you know? So what I'm going to do now is, let's see. Thank you. I like my little bow too. It goes wiggle, 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 wiggle. So let's see. I think because Gartic Phone is definitely going to be a smaller game, it might be better to start off with some Jackbox. What do you think, audience? Would y'all be interested in watching some Jackbox? Do a couple rounds of that? Yeah, Gartic Phone is another one of the games that I'm gonna be doing. Oh, don't worry, I am gonna do both games. It's just a matter of what order. Could easily jack some boxes. I sure hope so. So we're going to do just a couple of rounds of Jackbox, mainly because like I don't have a ton of games in this particular one that work really well with a whole bunch of people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the game and set up a private, set it up privately first so I can then make sure that the people who pre-agreed to being members of this section, of this part of the game, I'm just slathering now. At this part of the stream, make sure all of those players are able to get in first, and then I'll open it up so we can have anyone else who wants to join in. Hello, man. Have you heard our Lord and Savior Terraria or PSO2? I have. I haven't actually played either, though. Alright, so I'm going to start us off. Okay, I think the main games that are going to be good for this are Blather Round and Quiplash, so let's start off with a game of Quiplash. Let me set that up first, and then I'll drop the link first in the Discord chat, and then then I'll show it on stream. Okay. Alright. Oh, yes, also, let me just undeafen so I can now hear. Hello! Hello, everyone!
Hello.
Hello. So,
Hey.
I'm just going to briefly run through all the people in the call. So, if you have anything you want to do to introduce yourself, just so people know what voice is who. So let's. I think for my order it is Bridgie up top.
Hi, I'm Bridgie Dusk Blossom. I'm a halfling lich. My pronouns are she, her.
All right. Epitome. This. I think you're next.
Hi, I'm Epi. I am producer slash partner of B. I am
Okay.
three, I guess. A. Yeah.
All right. Next is Hemlock.
Hello, I'm Hemlock. I did the storybook illustrations for Bee's backstory. I'm holding up peace signs as if you can see me. Have fun.
All right. Then we got. Oh, then there's me in the order. Then there is Slash.
Hello, I'm Slash. I have to be kind of quiet right now. I go by they, them, and I'm new to the VTubing community, so hello.
Hello. And I know.